All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for coming. I've been psyching myself up, trying to come up with creative ways to not start crying. I've been running different frustrating town issues through my head to try to summon up non-emotional responses. Um, I spent a lot of time trying to think about how my mom would want this to be. And she was a really flexible person with things like this. And so I know she'd be really happy to have just everybody here looking at the farm, seeing the beautiful view here. She loved it here. So one of the things that, in looking through all of the things that she had kept over the years, she was really good actually at getting rid of lots of things. She was always trying to simplify the number of things that she had. And so the stuff that she did keep was pretty important to her. And Diego, he was wanting to be with me. Where do you want to go, Diego? You want to go? He probably wants to sit in your lap because he sees you have a comfortable chair. So one of the poem that I found in her drawer of special things that had all of my sister's stuff. I can't tell him. Where's Charlie? Okay. I was like, ah. So she had this poem that she had written down in a few places, and I told myself I practiced reading it, and I thought I was going to be able to get through it because I did just want it to be read here because it seemed to be important to her. I think it was something that somebody had sent her when my sister died. And so I'm going to ask Charlie Buell, who was I want to say a lifelong friend to me, certainly, but knew my mom for a really long time. I don't know what the number is, but Charlie, I'm going to ask him to come up and read this.
I've only read through this a couple of times, so I may falter a little bit. Crossing the bar, sunset and evening star, and one clear call from me. And may there be no moaning of the bar when I put out to sea, but such a tide as moving seems asleep, too full for sound and foam, when that which drew from out the boundless deep turns again home. Twilight and evening bell, and after that the dark, and may there be no sadness of farewell when I embark. For though from out our bourne of time and place the flood may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar.
That was great. Thank you. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to show a video that I've been working on putting together. Most of what I wanted to say is in the video. So take it away, Jeff.
I knew that if I had to talk about my mom in front of all the people who loved her, there was a very good chance I wouldn't get through it at all. My mom would understand that. She had no trouble forgiving people, and she was infinitely patient with her children. But she was really special, and I want to share something about her life, and not just about how sad I feel without her sometimes. So I decided to make a video which I hope will come closer to capturing her spirit and some of the special lessons she taught me. In digitizing a bunch of old cassette-sized videos a few years ago, it dawned on me for the first time that my mom was actually a very early adopter of the video camera.
Again.
We seem to have had one of the first consumer-grade cameras, and she used it mostly to film horses that were up for sale or riding lessons she wanted to refer back to. There are many hours of footage of my mom talking to us, the animals, and giving instructions for how and what to film. Perhaps my instinct to document the environment had its roots in my mom's early conditioning more than I realized. The images and videos are a combination of old family photo albums, videos she took while my sister and I were young, and stuff I grabbed from her iPhone after she died. Her phone and the things she chose to document are an accurate and inspiring depiction of my mom and the things she found beautiful, funny, interesting, or important. Hundreds of birds off of her bird feeder, horses we have loved over the years, videos of my kids playing with the dogs, having fun or accomplishing something new. There are countless versions of the view looking out toward the horizon at the changing view of McGonagall Mountain, Moody Pond, and Pitcher Pond. There's a whole album dedicated to trail cam photos that her friend Coraline shared from the wildlife cameras placed on my mom's property and elsewhere in Lincolnville. My mom lived in many places throughout her life, but there was something special about this place in Lincolnville and about the people and animals she shared it with. There are also a lot of videos of homes for sale, basements, driveways, hot water heaters, and all with running commentary from my mom to the prospective buyers, just the way she used to do it with horses. I loved going with my mom to look at both horses and houses for sale, both as prospective buyers ourselves or for clients of hers. She tended to find something to criticize about every property, and it usually started in the basement. She always made us look at the basement first, before any other part of the house. It's one of those annoying things she did that I now see makes a lot of sense. My mom grew up in Pennsylvania in a part of Philadelphia referred to as the Main Line. This is a part of the country I know only through my mom's eyes, since we never visited. Both of her parents died young, as did her brother Billy, all within a very short period of time between my parents getting married and me being born. But in the 4 years or so before her death, my mom had been in frequent contact with her half-brother Sandy, and her home is scattered with letters and articles and art supplies that Sandy had sent. My mom was so happy to have this relationship in her life. She seems to have inherited her love of horses from the people and personalities that populated the Main Line, but she left more or less as soon as she could. Her parents' house was immaculate and beautiful in stereotypically high society horse country. She attended an exclusive boarding school called Shipley through high school and maintained many lasting friendships. But she was eager to be the free and creative spirit who always had a special gift relating to animals, and she often preferred them over people. A letter she wrote in 1975 was recently shared with me, and my mom's personality shines through, just as I would expect the 19-year-old version of her to be. She was working for Pebble Beach Equestrian Center in California. Here's a little snippet of what she wrote. The people who live here are all white, filthy rich, and, well, you know the rest. Anyway, on my day off, I usually take off and assure myself the rest of the world still exists. As usual, I'm doing it for one reason. Horses. I get to ride 5 or 6 horses a day. You must agree with me about one thing, that it is healthier to be horse crazy than boy crazy. The girls here all wear tons of makeup and high heels. They look like a Barbie doll you buy from the store that breaks when you drop it. That sounded just like my mom. She didn't mince words, although she did spend a lot of energy later in life working to improve the way she communicated. She was so many things that it would be impossible to cover them all, and it feels overwhelming to try. She cared so much about other people, animals, and the planet. She was an animal rescuer, horse trainer, stonemason, artist, potter, real estate agent, gardener, accountant, business owner, mother, grandmother, and so much more. She loved learning new ways to improve the health and well-being of all animals, and for people too. She was always eager and excited to try new things, especially for tough cases where a person or an animal was suffering in some way. Her greatest love, the thing built into her soul, was horses, and she spent most of her life trying to improve the health and welfare of these majestic animals. In learning and teaching about horses, she found countless ways to improve the lives of people, too. After publishing her obituary, I got this message. I will never forget standing in your mom's barn, watching her teach the girls about horseback riding, and seeing my youngest daughter sitting on top of John, bareback with her legs spread out wide and her arms straight out to the side, holding on to nothing, and then trotting around in a circle on his back, giggling her head off. It was such a great metaphor for life. In that moment, she learned how to trust, how to let go, and how to enjoy the ride. Your mom was an amazing person who taught a lot more than horsemanship. And so she did. My mom was not always the most conventional parent. She wore riding clothes to the grocery store. She would sometimes make my friends weed the garden or do barn chores when they came to visit. She once wrestled with a neighbor in order to retrieve a dog that had been stolen. And when our big white truck was stolen, she tracked it down herself. And rather than prosecuting the man who stole it, she befriended him. She had so much compassion for mental health and substance abuse problems, and she would give anyone a chance if she thought she could help. She was not afraid to say what she thought or expose the truth as she understood it. She told me her father had a saying for people like my mom. May be wrong, but never in doubt. My mom had a sense of humor about that, and she liked to use that phrase on me too. My mom usually wasn't wrong, though, when it came to animals. I often wanted her to just blend in and smile and nod, even if she thought the person espousing to her about horses was completely out to lunch, as she would put it. I didn't want people to not like my mom, and my own painful insecurity grimaced at her directness. Mom, please don't ask that, I would plead. Allison, I can ask what I want. Why do you worry so much about what people think of me? It's not a reflection on you. Those words were said over and over again. You'll drive yourself crazy if you worry too much about what other people think. Kristen and I grew up exposed to so many things thanks to my mom. She thought seeing a counselor from time to time was good mental housekeeping, and she would sign the whole family up for sessions with a few different counselors over the years. And I resisted fervently at the time. She would call it a luxury and say that I should just take advantage of it and soak up some knowledge. She would say that people who refuse to talk to a counselor are usually just the type of people who should. I would tell her that she was making me very angry, and she would tell me that no one can make you angry. You choose your own reactions. Very annoying commentary for a teenager convinced otherwise. She didn't want to have to tiptoe around people. She said that life was too short for that, and that her family growing up never talked about anything serious or emotional, and no one learned how to work things out. She wasn't going to make the same mistake with her kids. She had a rule that we pretty much weren't allowed to speak poorly about the other sibling to her. She would say, try talking to Kristen about it. Don't beat up on people behind their backs. I needed to work it out with Kristen, and if we needed help from her, she would help, but she wouldn't take sides. It worked, and my friendship with my sister was a bond that any parent would count themselves proud and lucky to witness between their children. I remember my mom used to tell us that no matter how bad our day had been at school or how angry we were at her, we had to leave all that emotion somewhere else. It couldn't go out to the barn with us because it wasn't fair to the animals. Horses and dogs pick up on a person's energy. She was right, and some horses taught us that lesson the hard way, and others more gently. She thought learning to ride well was good for people because they either learned to monitor their unconscious emotions and be more self-aware, or things didn't go well. She thought horses could make you a better person. She would remind us often that horses can't talk and that we have to be their advocates. You can talk and tell everyone when something's hurting, Allison, but a horse can only show you. They only have you, she would say. You are like their jail keepers, and their whole life depends on you. As part of her horse boarding and training facility, she often took on horses in training that owners were trying to sell. She loved matching horses up with good homes where both the person and the horse benefited. She would do some training, advertise the horse for sale, and communicate with prospective buyers. This business meant that she did a lot of filming of horses that included her commentary, and she was notorious for sharing more information than most would expect. I was often tasked with doing the filming, and I would sometimes try to dissuade her from mentioning negative things about the horses. But she always pushed back. "Oh no, I'm not that kind of horse person. That's how horses end up abused or sold over and over again, because people care more about money than they do about horses. People know that every horse has their issues, and what we are looking for is a good home. We want people to know the good and the bad." She was fond of helping other people to enjoy horses too, and she was always trying to learn more from others and to teach whatever she learned. She would tell people it takes 3 lifetimes to learn how to ride a horse, so don't expect to get it all at once. She rescued every animal that crossed our paths who needed it and formed a lifelong habit and base of knowledge good for everything from baby robin rehabilitation to tips and tricks for difficult ponies to treating mange on puppies and humans too, because yes, bringing home all these creatures is not without risks. I'll never forget my mom handing Kristen and me a tube of prescription cream of some sort and telling us just to rub a little on our skin if any weird itchy spots started forming. Kristen and I looked at each other. "What? Are you kidding me, Mom? You mean people can get this too? That should have been like the first thing you told us." She didn't think any of those things were big deals. "Oh, it's totally temporary. Don't worry about it." My mom taught us to break the ice off water buckets before school and how to address drainage problems in paddocks on the weekends, all while driving us 1,000,000 miles back and forth to Camden. She had energy for everything. We trick-or-treated with our ponies on Pearl Street. We hosted field trips at our house. We had the type of childhood that I can't think of any way that it could have been improved. I have no memory of her complaining about any of it, and anything. She taught us to ride horses and how to care for them, all while building stone walls and patios and running a boarding business and growing a huge percentage of what we ate in her own garden. She made pots in the basement in her kiln and on a wheel, and she mixed glazes and sold them to complement the custom-ordered dried flower arrangements she made in her spare time. Yeah, she even grew all the flowers and dried them in her attic. She was the type of person that enjoyed life and the other souls she shared it with. At the time, Kristen and I really had no idea how magical and rare our childhood and our mother was. It was also a lot of work, but we were both horse crazy enough to make it worth it. My mom taught me so many lessons. I learned them kicking and screaming and mostly refused to acknowledge them until later in life when my hand was forced. I remember she would talk about losing her parents and her brother in early adulthood, but I never really grasped the sadness of what she had been through with so many losses in rapid succession. Having not shared in such a loss, it was impossible to appreciate her resilience. It wasn't until I had to face tragedy alongside her that I began to absorb the wisdom and perspective she had gained. My sister died in August of 2018 after being hit by a motorboat on Damariscotta Lake while she was swimming. Kristen was my best friend and a part of the daily life of our whole family. Everything without her was hard. Everything without her still is hard, especially this. But my mom dealt with her death bravely and with a grace and resilience that few people in her position would be able to muster. The night that Kristen died, she went to pick up her dogs in Belfast and checked in on Kristen's friends, not wanting them to find out in some other way. She discovered upon arriving to the house in Belfast that Kristen had broken their agreement not to have additional dogs other than her own special rescue dog, Diego. Kristen and my mom were renovating what they called a flip house together, and Kristen had been taking on foster animals ranging from squirrels to entire litters of puppies from Mississippi. This was my mom's Facebook post just a couple days after Kristen died, while she was trying to raise money for the animal rescue group that Kristen volunteered with. Thursday night, after Kristen's passing, I felt a big nudge. Go get Diego. I did. And surprise, there was an extra dog named Max. We had an agreement. No extra dogs on the new Flip House's solid maple floors. It made me laugh, which was a very odd emotion for the time, since I was sobbing. Max needed a spot for a few days, and I was delighted to see him, since Kristen always knew what really mattered. Alive things, usually fuzzy, not floors and not furniture. She will always be my reminder to do the right thing. Please donate to help fuzzy, alive things. She remained a source of fun and creativity and light for my children and many around her, even in this very dark time. When she started to feel that she might be losing herself to the dark side or slipping into the poor me mindset, as she would call it, she would sign up to rescue another difficult-to-place foster dog. When she felt lonely, she found others who were lonely too. The first year of Kristen's birthday after her death, I remember my mom looking for a way to keep from being overcome by sadness, which for her always meant looking for something positive to do, something Kristen would have done. It just so happened that there was a very pregnant Great Dane Mastiff Bulldog mix that had been paralyzed after a car crash in which her young owner sadly passed away, and the dog had been surrendered to Maine Coast Animal Rescue. The next morning, she had a cesarean, with 6 of the 9 puppies surviving. The mother, unfortunately, had to be euthanized on day 6 after my mom stayed up around the clock, tending to her every need and helping the puppies nurse. My mom signed up to bottle feed and found additional foster parents for the group of puppies. She named the littlest one Mayday because Kristen's birthday was May 1st, and the puppies were born the day after. She was the runt of the litter and needed a little extra care, which is hard to believe now. Here's a video my mom took where you can hear her trying to teach the puppies to get out of the whelping box on their own.
Hey. I dubbed this one May Day because Kristen's birthday was on May Day and the mother went into labor on May Day. She had a C-section the next day. Okay, it's going to be a long, boring video. Come on! Come on! Come on! Come on! Come on! Let's go! That's right! Good job! Oh my Lord! Good job, May! You did it! One leg! Here we go! Oh boy, you're both out. Hi! How's my pretty girl?
May ended up looking almost identical to a dog named Dulce that Kristen had found for my mom years ago, a dog that formed an incredible bond with her over the 14 years she was alive. Mayday and Dulce are identical in many ways, and my mom always felt like Kristen sent her Mayday to cheer her up. Now I have no choice but to have Mayday cheer me up too, even when I don't want her to sometimes. My mom dealt with the paperwork of death, the loose ends, the medical bills, the bank accounts, the unfinished flip house that the two of them had taken on together. She now knew the unimaginable pain of losing a child, but she also remembered that she had another daughter and grandchildren and pets who were still here. She warned me that for her, the hardest part of grieving sometimes comes later, when the shock of the tragedy passes and the crisis is over, and people stop calling and the expectation to go back to normal life begins. My dad had bumper stickers made that said, "Live like Kristen." And my mom embraced that by rescuing more dogs, taking on new projects, learning to paint, and making new friends, even during the height of the pandemic. Over the past decade, she had developed rheumatoid arthritis, a cruel trick of nature for a woman whose life had revolved around constant activity. She lost a lot of the strength in her hands and even had to give up her lifelong love of riding and training horses. Gardening and even painting were challenging, and it was painful for my sister and me to think about the radical changes she was having to make in her lifestyle. But she didn't pity herself. She methodically made the changes in her lifestyle that were needed, and she found new ways of enjoying life, whether through nightly puzzles with her neighbor Margaret, who she came to adore, or painting the landscapes that she loved. My mom's time on this earth as we knew her ended unexpectedly on December 30th, 2021. Just days before, she had been telling me that she was feeling better than she had in a long time, and that she was possibly ready for a shift from real estate to the next adventure. She died peacefully in her chair, with the tractor manual and a cup of tea at her side. She and my husband, Vinny, had recently invested in a tractor, and she was thrilled with the new power it was providing her. It had been years since she owned a tractor, and she said this one was so easy to operate compared to the older models. My mom knew a lot about tractors and their implements already. She was also the sort to read the manual. We had spoken with her just hours before. It appears that the cause may have been a heart attack brought on by the elevated risk associated with rheumatoid arthritis and her genetically high cholesterol levels. But we may never know for sure. She was a person who always had more energy than everyone else, and that was true right up until her final days. She worked on art with the kids, gave her grandson Colton some tractor driving lessons, shared some of her latest paintings, and was excited that a couple of her favorite real estate clients were on the verge of finding a home locally within their price range. We had tromped around the house together while I used my phone to FaceTime with her clients. She was getting frustrated as a real estate agent because all the buyers she represented kept losing out on deals that needed financing. Only those in a position to make high cash offers were succeeding in this market. We were together heartened by the fact that her clients considered the stormwater issues manageable and the Habitat for Humanity housing project next door to be a very positive thing. Those were the type of people that my mom loved helping, whether through riding lessons or real estate or whatever she came across. My mom believed that the end of our lifetime in this body is not the end at all. She really, really believed that. She had more faith than most people. She attended many churches throughout her lifetime and believed in exposing us to different religious philosophies. She had gone through the Catholic confirmation process with us when we were in high school, drawn to the church in part because of the charismatic and stereotype-breaking motorcycle riding Father Eugene Gaffey at Our Lady of Good Hope. And through all the churches, she always wove in a belief in reincarnation. I remember frequent references to the book Many Lives, Many Masters when I was a teenager, but I was a typical teenager at the time, and I listened only begrudgingly. Half listening, my mother would call it. After her death, I looked through the shelves and on her Kindle reader and chose a few titles to read now with a more open mind. This one jumped out at me. My mom had a peace and a presence in the face of death that I now understand more fully. We had many horses and pets over the years, and as is the case with most animals, their lives are shorter than ours. My mom always took the utmost care in making sure that these animals were able to pass on peacefully. She believed that we were responsible for both a dignified life and a dignified death for the creatures in our care. She pressed us always to be responsible for our own emotional energy and to not prolong the suffering of an animal unnecessarily. She would always ask the question, are we keeping them alive for them or for us? My mom believed that the end of life was a moment of transition that will come for us all and for the animals we share ourselves with. She believed in focusing on gratitude for the time we had with the animal and the lessons we learned from them, and that at the time of death, the horse or dog or cat deserved to feel peace emanating from the people around them. She felt that emotional, stressful goodbyes were a thing that people do, not animals, and that there is so much to be learned from them. She always convinced my sister and me not to be present when we put an animal to sleep if we couldn't keep our emotions in check. In some ways, her death, although much too soon from our perspective, happened in a way that let her move on when she was feeling loved and healthy and productive. And deep in her soul, I tend to think that she was at peace and ready for her next adventure, having learned and lived with great love and purpose. I talked to my mom a lot about life and death. She wasn't afraid to talk about death, and so I know she would want people gathered here at her farm, patting the dogs and walking up to the top of her hill to see the view towards Camden, as we so often did. I have spent hours going through her pictures and reading old text messages she wrote on good days and on bad ones. I know that when I feel really awful and sad, that the very dark feeling will pass and that the sun will come out. Sometimes when I walk up the hill, I can see McGonagall Mountain as far as Penobscot Bay. And sometimes it is so gray and cloudy that nothing is visible at all, like the days after she died. But I still know that the mountain and the ocean are there, and that each drop of rain and even the tears that fall on the side of the hill are ultimately traveling downstream toward the brook on the side of her hill, and then under the road to the stream and to McGonagall Lake and River, and on down to the ocean. Each raindrop continues to exist as it has, but it forms with something bigger as it goes. It becomes more profound with each step. One way or another, I suppose we're all traveling downstream to form with something bigger. My mom's journey as this one little drop is over, and she's now a part of something bigger, but we will see her again. She believed that, and so do I. She faced the challenges that life gave her with an eye towards self-improvement and peace, and always a sense of humor. Even though her commentary was occasionally unwelcome, and I often considered it awkwardly timed, I am so grateful that she spoke up while she was here. She has left me with a gift that I didn't realize she was creating all of these years. A voice in my head that is telling me I'm going to be okay, even now as I wipe away tears. After Kristen's death, she took on her beloved rescue dog and escape artist, Diego, and promised to continue Kristen's work advocating for furry creatures of all kinds. She did that, and will continue to do it too, both for Kristen and for my mom and for all the animals who need us. My mom also had a goal that she will need us to keep working on, and that is the work of improving the safety on Maine lakes for swimmers and paddlers. She and Kristen both loved swimming and being on the water, and she had hoped to work on a campaign to promote education and rules regarding the new and existing laws for motorboat operators. She really wanted to create maps of Maine lakes delineating the water safety zone, which is the 200 feet from any shoreline, including islands, where boats are required to go no faster than headway speed. Please consider supporting and promoting this effort, posting educational signage at your local boat launch, and supporting other ways to make our public water bodies safe for swimmers and paddlers and all of our most vulnerable users.
My mom, one of the things that she really wanted to do at Kristen's celebration of life that she kind of brought up at the last minute was to film it. And at the time, I was so overcome by grief that I just wasn't able to recognize that it was something I would want to look back on. And I now really regret that because there were so many stories that were shared about Kristen, and I wish I had listened to my mom. And so this time, that's what I'm doing, because I know there are a lot of people that would have liked to be here, and have written things on Facebook and elsewhere, but they would really enjoy being able to listen to this. And so just want to extend an opportunity for anybody that has anything to say. Sorry.
Nice fake. That was pretty good.
I'm trying to keep myself.
Thanks for that. I see a lot of
Really close.
I see a lot of familiar faces, but also some new faces. My name is Hugh McKellar. Molly and I grew together and built a life together. And then we grew apart. But the thing that has always kept our love Allison and Kristen and Colton and Mason. And Molly could do anything she set her mind to. You know, some of you don't realize that. No, sorry. Not used to Mr. Microphone here. Molly was an incredible bookkeeper. She did people's taxes. Anything that she set her mind to, she did well, and always did well, and did things the right way. Whether it was fixing something at her farm, or, you know, when we were together, stuff that I couldn't do, she would figure out how to do. And that continues to live through Allison and Mason and Colton. And, you know, we're really all very lucky to have Molly in our lives.
Thank you, Hugh. Hi, everybody. I'm going to say some words first from Dr. Thomas Peel. Hey, Allison. This is Dr. Peel was he is a great friend of the family and a homeopathic chiropractor in Belfast, and knows us all very well, and love Molly. Hey, Allison. This is Dr. Peel. We were not aware of the celebration of life for your mom, so thank you for letting us know. Unfortunately, I have a seminar this weekend in Portland and will not be able to attend. I'm very sorry, but I've been looking forward to this doctor seminar for quite some time. This reminds me of a special thing about your mom. She was one of those patients that always inspired me to want to learn new techniques and information that would help her and other patients live happier, healthier lives. Perhaps it was that special love and compassion that Molly had for all of us, whether we walked on 2 legs or 4. She made me aware of many different potential avenues to consider in helping others, not only herself. To consider helping others, only her. She therefore made me a better practitioner and, more importantly, a better human being. I was privileged to spend about 2 hours on the phone with your mom before she passed. We had a great time discussing the current world situation, COVID, etc., and how we both fit into that picture here in Maine. We enjoyed some good laughs and reminiscing about the past and where they had led each of us, and how we both felt blessed to have learned from those life lessons. Your mom will be sorely missed by all of us, but I can truly say that I was blessed to have known her. It seems hard to let go sometimes, but I remind myself that her spirit is still filled with the love and joy that she shared with all of us and continues to share with each of us today. Thomas Peel. Thank you. It is fitting I read Dr. Peel's words. Okay. It is fitting that I read Dr. Peel's words. We're both Toms after all. Molly was quick to send me to this body and health magician when tree work had beat me up, and he wasn't taking new patients, but Molly got me in, and Dr. Peel fixed me up. Molly and I have tons in common. Both go-getters, entrepreneurs, lovers of animals, plants, and trees. Do you know I lived on the farm here for a year with her in a 23-foot tow-behind camper? Right here. It was amazing. Mucking stalls, working on horse hooves, mowing, gardening, bringing the kids out to play with her, Auntie Kristen, and all the dogs. Allison, Kristen, and Molly are my best lifelong girlfriends. Alice and I even went to Montessori school together. Kristen and I used to laugh really hard watching Molly trying to teach a former girlfriend of mine that if she was going to water the garden, she must stick her finger into the dirt to see if it's wet, at least an inch deep. Those salon fingernails never made it into the dirt, but Molly never stopped trying to get her to do it. Molly was relentless and loving in all things she deemed important, like getting the garden properly watered, the kids' special vitamins from Dr. Peel, the dogs and horses having the highest quality food and life, going above and beyond for her real estate clientele, Molly was a passionate force whose love shines on. Water your garden deep like Molly did. Those roots will grow strong and bear beautiful blossoms like the family and friends Molly cultivated and are here today to celebrate her. I love you all. Molly, I love you. Vinny, Allison, and I are taking great care of the farm, the dogs, and living our best life here with the kids. Take a walk up to the mountaintop overlooking McGoneycook Lake, the Camden Hills sweeping out to Penobscot Bay. See the tree forts, the zip line, buoy swing, and feel the paradise Molly created for us to grow with her on this special farm. Thank you, Grandma. We miss you. I love you from all of us. Thank you. Would anybody else like to share?
Hello there. My wife Susan and I are probably not familiar to a lot of people here. We met Molly when we were looking for a home up here in 2016, I believe it was. And I feel like it was, what's the term when something happens? Kismet. We were driving around looking at a house. We decided to dial a phone number. Molly had recently gotten her knee replaced and was not working again yet. But somehow, the number we called was forwarded to her phone. The only reason Molly answered is because we happened to be from the Pennsylvania area where she grew up, and she thought it was somebody she knew. She told us she wasn't working, and then about 30 seconds later, she said she was on her way. So we looked at that house. That's not the house we bought, but we had decided at that point that Molly was the realtor and friend for us. She showed up with Rox in the car, who quickly became one of my favorite dogs. I'm going to, yes. So she always brought Rox with her, she said, as a safety precaution, which made sense. So we met Rox before we went into the house. And we weren't scared of Rox at that point. Molly had recently had her knee replaced, and when we came out from looking at the house, she had went into the car to check on Rox. And all we heard her saying was, "There's pee everywhere." So we were like, oh no, the poor dog, he peed in the car. No, Molly had bought a giant package of frozen peas for her knee, and he had gotten into them while we were looking at the house. So we knew with that kind of compassion, Molly was not mad. She was not mad at Rox at all. We all had a great laugh. I'm sure there's still peas in that car if you look. I have no doubt. We knew we had to keep Molly in our lives. And she was our first call every time we came to Maine. And we miss her sorely. Okay.
All right. So I'm not a big speaker, and Allison and I have been best friends since we met. Well, we went to Montessori together, and we've been best friends for about 35 years now. I actually met her when one of our nursery school teachers who trained with Molly on her horse brought me over. She was watching us when our parents were away, my brothers and I, and gave me a pony ride on Allison and Kristen's pony Coco, and Allison came out. Red hair, put her hands on her hips and said, "Who are you?" And the rest is history. And I'm going to try right now to read a poem. My father, who was a Camden selectman and a good friend of Allison's, we all grew up together, but he died about almost 6 years ago, kind of in a similar way, overnight, unexpected. And there's a poem that I wanted to read for his service, and I just couldn't bring myself to. And I told Allison I wasn't going to be able to do this, but I'm going to give it a try. So, all right. It's called When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly, spaces fill, with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed, we can be and be better, for they existed. Thank you. All right. And I will also follow Tom by saying I lived with Molly for a period of time. I think we could have a raise of hands.
Yes, Molly definitely told me about Tom living in the camper. There were some good stories. Thank you so much, Allison and Vinny, for bringing us all together here to remember Molly and what an awesome person she was. Now that I found out this is being recorded and videoed, I don't know, I kind of need to edit my speech a little bit. But that's okay. So me and Molly would spend hours on the phone talking about everything from politics to dogs and real estate. She taught me a lot about myself and about real estate. Molly sold me 2 properties, and then we also listed another house to sell. And that was definitely an experience. From that experience, Molly would say, Nate, we discovered that you're a much better buyer than seller. So I won't be selling anything ever again after that. So we would spend a lot of hours on the phone when I drive from my lake house to Freeport, hearing stories from Molly about her buyers and sellers. And I really enjoyed those stories. That's what I probably shouldn't be saying on camera because she probably wasn't allowed to tell me, but we had a lot of fun laughs about that. And grandma. Did I mention that she was a grandma to Mason and Colton, and an amazing grandmother at that? And she would always tell me there was one rule at grandma's house. Do you know what the rule at grandma's house always was? It was don't tell mom. Then I'm sure everybody remembers the Honda Fit that Molly had. The Honda Fit I'm a car guy, so the Honda Fit kind of encapsulates everything about Molly. It's the only front-wheel drive vehicle that somebody would take down like a totally muddy dirt road in spring. And somehow she wouldn't get stuck. She would bring buyers down, or people who were wanting to look at my lake house, and my driveway is like a mile long. And I'd be like, Molly, probably not the best idea to bring the Honda Fit. Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I was like, well, maybe you guys should just walk down the road. No, it's going to be all, this thing's gone through everything. I'd be like, Molly, just be careful. Okay. So then when Honda announced that they're discontinuing the Honda Fit, every time I talked to Molly, we'd have a brief mourning of the fact that she's never going to be able to buy a new Honda Fit. So now I hear Vinny is taking on the Honda Fit, so that's good. Painting. We all know she was an amazing painter, and one of our last conversations was Molly agreeing to paint me something with lighthouses and puffins. And, you know, her expertise is more like horses and, yes, that's right. So I said, you know, but this is the kind of person who Molly is. She opened up her heart and would actually paint like a tourist painting for somebody, which, I mean, most artists wouldn't just do that. But for me, she said she would work on that for me. So I'll just say another really quick funny story was I saw Molly in the refrigerator once, like looking over some things, and I was like, oh, like what are you doing in there? Like, is there's something wrong with the food or whatever? And Molly's like, oh, well, I'm like doing a cleanse, an energy cleanse on some of the food. So Molly, I guess, was like quite an expert in like energy crystallization or something. And I had never seen it before, and I didn't know much about it, but she was an energy healer and a cleaner, and she's been to my houses and has done it in all of the houses. In fact, one house I bought that Molly was my real estate agent for, I never even went inside the house. I was in Europe. I said, Molly, you go look at the house and tell me if it's good. And she said, well, I brought my crystal and looked great. And I said, well, with that, let's just put an all cash offer in. And we did, and we got the house. I swear to God, that's how it went. No inspections. That's why I'm a good buyer. So, and then, that's right, exactly. And then of course, the dog lover. Molly was a huge dog lover. And the way that you know that is anyone who feeds their dog refrigerated dog food that costs more than human food has the biggest heart of any human being. And I learned that when Molly asked me to go and get some dog food. And I'm thinking like Old Roy or something. No, it's in the refrigerated section. I'm like, dog food in the refrigerated section? I found it. And of course, Molly was an amazing mom to two incredible, amazing people in my life, Kristen and Allison. So Molly, of course, will be missed by us all. But for me, of course, her memory will live on for me in the houses and properties that she sold me. Every time I see a Honda Fit, every time I hear a commercial for gourmet dog food, seeing a painting that only a Maine tourist would buy. And though what I will miss most were the very frequent phone calls we would have where I would be driving from Freeport to the lake or vice versa. And every time we'd get off the phone, I'd say, all right, well, I'm getting close to the house, so I'm going to lose my service momentarily. So sleep tight, and I can't wait to hear about what happens with their offer. Love you. Thank you.
So my family and Molly and Kristen and Allison lived out in the willy wax of Appleton and Union, and for many years it was hard to tell which of our four kids or Kristen and Allison lived at which house, because you were never sure which kid was going to be sleeping under your roof on any particular night. And I worked with Molly at her farm, and we shared very many passions about taking care of the kids and the farm and horses, and we just, we shared many things, not necessarily the same temperament, which maybe was a good thing, because I worked with her and for her for, boy, I would say 20 years, from the early 80s till she moved to Florida.
I can't remember a time when you weren't part of
it. There's one funny story about Molly not really getting mad, that our older daughter Sarah used to babysit for Kristen and Allison, and one of the first times that Sarah babysat for Allison unsupervised, Allison found the Desitin and repainted the walls of the bedroom with Desitin.
I thought you were going to tell the ear piercing story.
Oh, no, well, no. There are too many stories, but just the fact that we reconnected when she moved here, and I would come over, and in fact, I rarely carefully listened to MPBN in the mornings, but I had it on in the morning after Kristen's death, and I heard, and I couldn't believe it. And I immediately called Molly. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I said, can I come and spend the day with you? And I came and spent the day, and we probably didn't say 10 words. But it was more than worth any sadness to reconnect on a level that I hadn't connected with her for years. So I promised my kids I would get up and say something, because none of them could be here.
Hi, my name's Corbin Reamer. I met Molly in 1969, and I'm here representing a lot of people from Philadelphia who loved her a lot. But let's talk about 1976. That was the year I graduated from college, and I immediately moved back to my parents' house, got a job as a bartender, and thought things were pretty good. Molly, on the other hand, had gone out to the Wild West and was making a life for herself out in Washington State, and we stayed in touch, but not too much during that time. Well, late one night after a shift, I managed to total my mother's car on the way home and ended up in the ER and coming out on crutches. And Molly came home to visit her folks and her family for the Christmas holidays, and she came over and she looked at me and she said, "Let me get this straight. You got a perfectly good college education, you totaled your mother's car, you're working as a bartender, and you're on crutches." She never sugarcoated anything. At any rate, she decided something needed to be done, and for Christmas she gave me a one-way bus ticket from Philadelphia to Tacoma, Washington. And that got me out of the house and launched me into life, a life Molly was living to the fullest, as she always did. So here's to Molly. We love her.
I'm sorry. My name's Melissa, and I've been extra emotional lately. I'm pregnant, so we'll see how I do. I grew up down the road from Molly's Farm in Union, and for many years we went trick-or-treating to the farm and occasionally stopped in. And then I think I was 16, and I just tried out for Eastern States, and I was one of the few kids that didn't make it and felt like I wasn't good enough. Eastern States is a big 4-H show that you have to try out for. And suddenly I got it in my head that I was going to go visit Molly, and I was going to talk to her, and I was going to go ride with her, and someday I was going to be better. And so I got on my horse, and I rode him down the road, and I showed up at her house riding a horse and a halter with a lead rope. I didn't even bother to saddle him up that day. I was just on a mission. And she's like, "This kid just shows up in my yard," you know. And I don't know how anyone else would have reacted, but Molly had me put him in a paddock, and she showed me around her farm, and she introduced me to all the horses, and she put me to work. And I worked for Molly for that whole summer in trade for lessons, and she put me on some of the nicest horses I'll ever probably ride in my life. And she did her matchmaking and got me a horse I had named Tiger. And when I was like, ready to quit, she just kept pushing me forward. And she's been there for years, and I know over the last year there's been so many times I've wanted to call her about various things going on in my life, and it's been kind of hard not to have her there for her advice and encouragement. Or I mean, she always knew what to say. It wasn't always what I wanted to hear, but she we went house shopping. That was quite an adventure because, of course, she kept going, "You have too many horses, Melissa. It'd be a lot easier to find a farm in your price range if you didn't have so many horses and so many dogs." And so we looked at all these disasters, and I kept going, "Oh, that's okay. It's a fixer-upper. We'll be able to do it." And she'd go, "You are just like my daughters. You cannot do this with a kid in your house." And I'd take that as a compliment. It didn't matter if it was Kristen or Alice she was talking about. I'm like, that's a compliment. And she'd get so frustrated with me, and my husband be off to the side shaking his head. But she helped us buy the house that we have now. And a few weeks ago, we realized there's pumpkin pine under the carpet that we're looking to replace. And I really wanted to call her and just tell her, it's beautiful wood floors under this carpet, and we're going to rip it up, Baby's due in 4 weeks, and we're ripping up a carpet. I don't know what else I can say. She was just a really big, important part of my life. And I miss her. Thank you. Whew. All right. Starting to get to that part of the event where the kids are screaming and looking for their own source of entertainment. If we good? Okay. So if I can drag. Oh, come on, May. May is actually, even though she's very, very big, she's very shy. She's doing pretty well, but she gets very scared of people. So Jeff, I guess I maybe shouldn't go this way, but we're going to end with the person who my mom would have wanted to do the presiding over, or the sort of religious part of this, was Jean Forrest. Jean Forrest, who did my sister's service. But unfortunately, Jean wasn't available for this day, and I forgot to consult her before setting the day. But she did record something for us, so I want to play that for everyone, and then afterwards, for those who want to stay and have a little bit of time, there's more refreshments, and we're going to do a bonfire, and but first we're going to walk up to the top of the hill and see the view. And also, one of the things that my mom and I always talked about was how it'd be nice to, she really loved gardens and flowers, and it's not really much of a strong area for me, but we were always getting wildflower seeds and then forgetting to plant them. So there's like a clearing up at the top where you can see a view, and we're just gonna take some handfuls of wildflower seeds and some bulbs too, if you want, and toss them around and see which ones catch on for the spring. So feel free to join us for that, or not, of course, if you need to get going. So thank you, everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jean Forrest, and Allison asked me to contribute to Molly's memorial. But because I'll be out of town on October 22nd, she generously offered to record this video of my affection and admiration for Molly. All of us gathered here have been touched by this remarkable woman. Molly was and still is an inspiration for all of us. She was intelligent, adventurous, strong, beautiful, focused, creative, generous, loving, and we could go on, and I'm certain that each of you could add an adjective or 4 or 5 to describe this indescribable woman, undefinable woman. Her love for and relationship with her horses and a menagerie of animals is legendary. As a parent, she was perhaps both demanding and permissive. She supported her beautiful, intelligent, creative daughters to explore and express their fullness, their core selves. We hold both Molly and Kristen in our hearts today, and we support Allison as she continues without her beloved mother and sister. Molly left us too suddenly and too early in her life. Her sudden passing offers us an opportunity to reflect on the mystery of life and death. Being here on her amazing land, at her home, is a remembrance of the importance of nature to Molly. I'd like to ask you to take a few moments and quietly take 3 deep breaths, opening to the beauty of autumn, opening to the earth, the trees, the rocks, the wind, the sky, the sun, the moon, and the stars, because these all nurtured Molly and her family of humans and animals. Recently, while listening to a podcast called Poetry Unbound, I heard the following poem and immediately thought of Molly. So I would like to share it with you today. The name of it is Gloria Mundi. The author is Michael Kleber Diggs. Gloria Mundi. Come to my funeral dressed as you would for an autumn walk in the woods. Arrive on your schedule. I give you permission to be late, even without good cause. If my day arrives when you had other plans, please proceed with them instead. Celebrate me there. Keep dancing. Tend your gardens. Live well. Don't stop. Think of me forever assigned to a period, a place, a people. Remember me in stories, not the first time we met, and not the last. A time in between. Our moment here is small. I am too. A worldly thing among worldly things. 1 part per 7 billion. Make me smaller still. I repurpose my body. Mix me with soil and seed. Compost for a sapling. Make my remains useful. Wondrous. Let me bloom and recede. Grow and decay. Let me be lovely, yet temporal, like memories, like mahogany. Thinking about this, opening to all that surrounds us, may we each remember Molly in her fullness as she now recycles into spirit, earth, air, water, sun, moon, and stars.